The map that led into shadow, it is said, in the deepest quiet of a museum hall, where the air is still and cool as a subterranean stream, there exists a wall of ghosts. Not ghosts of flesh or breath or voice, but ghosts of stone, ghosts of place. Before you, mounted against the grey, is a vast plain of marble. It is not a sculpture of a god or a hero. It is a city, or rather, the memory of a city, pressed into creamy stone like a divine seal into wax. This is the former Urbis Romi, the shape of the city of Rome. Once, it spanned an entire temple wall, a cartographic titan whispering the truth of an empire's heart. Now it is this, a constellation of fragments, a shattered sky of streets and walls. Your gaze is drawn not to the whole, for there is no whole to see. It is drawn to a single surviving island in this sea of silence, the largest fragment. Here, etched with a chilling clarity, is the outline of a temple. You see the precise steps, the colonnade like a row of silent sentinels, the cellar's solid heart. You know its name, perhaps, but in this hall, in this light, names feel like distant, fragile things. What remains is the shape, the absolute geometric truth of a place that prayed to gods whose names have faded with the marble dust. Come closer, not with your body, but with your mind's quiet eye. Imagine lifting a hand, not to touch the glass that now guards it, but to brush your fingertips across the stone itself, cool and smooth, to trace the shallow channel of the engraver's line. This groove, no wider than a blade of grass, did not mark a boundary of property. It marked the edge of a world. It said, here, reality was this. On this side of the line, a sacred space. On the other, the common earth. The map does not show the processions, the smoke of sacrifice, the murmur of litany. It shows the vessel that held them, the silent stone expectation of ceremony. This is our invitation, not to rebuild the roaring, sweating, living city of 1,000,000 souls, but to enter the city that was made permanent, the city of perfect intention, to follow this line, this ghost of a chisel's path, and see where it leads. For on this map, every line is a path, and every path, in the end, leads only into shadow. Let us begin here, at the steps of this etched temple. Let the city unfold from this fixed point, not as a historian reconstructs it, with dates and deeds, but as a dreamer reads it, with symbol and sensation. See how the lines vary. Some are deep and sure, defining the great public dreams. The mighty curve of the Theatrum Marcelli, a perfect half-moon scooped from the stone, an embrace waiting for an audience of thousands. Here is the Castra Praetoria, the barracks, rendered in a strict, unforgiving grid, a logic of order and power, a geometry of control pressed upon the earth. Thus lines speak in the voice of the state, confident, declarative. But then, look closer. Here, weaving through the monumental certainty, is a different hand, a lighter, finer line. It traces the Aqua Claudia, the aqueduct. On the map, it is a simple, elegant thread, a scratch of silver across the marble skin. But to trace it is to feel the mountain water it carried, cold and clear, singing in its stone channel. This line is not just a marker of engineering. It is the pulse of the city. It is the lifeblood rendered as abstraction. The cartographer chose to show not the towering arches that strode across the Campagna, but the idea of the water's path. He mapped the essence, not the spectacle. This is the intimate cartography. This is knowing a place so perfectly, so essentially, that it ceases to exist in wood, brick, and tile and becomes instead an idea in stone, a memory made permanent before it was even lost. Now, let your gaze soften. Let it drift away from the clear, legible lines and into the spaces between the fragments. Here lies the true heart of the mystery, the negative space, the silence between the notes. Here is a gap, a jagged coastline of marble where the stone sheared away, clean and cruel. What vanished here? The shape suggests a curve, perhaps the apse of a great basilica where laws were debated like poetry. Or is it the wide, open courtyard of a bathhouse, where steam rose and the world dissolved in warmth and gossip? The map holds its secret. We can whisper names, Domus Aurea, Baths of Caracalla, but they are just sounds in the empty air. The truth is a phantom shape, a ghost building defined only by the absence that surrounds it. And here, another, a small, lonely fragment, shows only the corner of a building, a few lines of a street, and then nothing. A blank expanse of stone, polished by time. Was this an insula? A warren of a homes where a baker, a weaver, a clerk dreamed their private dreams? A temple to a minor god, beloved on this one street corner? We will never know. The map has taken the name, the function, the very memory of the lives that unfolded within those walls, and has returned it to pure, unmarked stone. It is the most profound forgetting, not an erasure but a quiet, dignified return to potential. From something back to anything. Listen to the silence of these gaps. It is not an empty silence. It is a resonant one. It is the echo of a million unmapped moments. A child's laughter in a courtyard that no longer has a name, an argument in a shop that is now just a blank space. A kiss stolen in a portico that exists only as a broken line. The map, in its majestic incompleteness, honors these too. It says, "This much we knew and dared to set in stone. The rest belongs to the shadow." We become then not archaeologists of place, but archaeologists of intention. We follow the ghost of the cartographer's mind. Why choose this detail, the interior columns of a temple, but omit the statues that stood between them? Why render a garden as a simple rectangle when it would have been a riot of fig and laurel, of scent and dappled light? Because the map is not a portrait of life. It is a blueprint of certainty. It is the empire saying to itself, "This is our form, this is our shape." It is an act of profound control and a testament to an even more profound vanity. The belief that the essence of Rome could be captured, could be frozen. And so we wander this ghost city. We walk the etched street that leads from the Temple of Mars, past the blank space that was once a market, and toward the sharp, clear angle of the Ludus Magnus, the gladiatorial school. The line of the street is straight and true. But in that blank market space, can you almost hear it? The din of barter, the smell of spices and fish, the weight of a coin changing hands. The map has silenced the chaos of life, leaving only the orderly channels that contained it. It is Rome stripped of its sound, its smell, its heat, reduced to its beautiful, melancholy skeleton. The light in the hall is fading now, or perhaps it is our own attention, softening as sleep approaches. The fragments on the wall seem to recede, their edges blurring into the grey stone behind them. They are no longer separate pieces of a puzzle we must solve. They have become something else entirely. They have become the truest Rome. Not the Rome of legionaries and emperors, of triumphs and fires. That Rome was a creature of blood and breath, glorious and terrible and utterly, heartbreakingly transient. It rose, it roared, and it receded, like a wave upon a shore of time. But this Rome, this city of lines and silence, of marble and memory, this Rome is eternal. It never decayed, it never burned. It was captured at the height of its own idea, purified of fallibility and set adrift in time. It is a perfect city, a city that exists only in the past, and therefore can never be corrupted by the future. Every engraved line is a path, yes, but the destination of these paths is not a form or a temple. It is a moment in the early 3rd century AD, when someone believed the world could be made permanent, when they took the chaotic, living, breathing organism of a metropolis and dared to give it a single, immutable form. To study this map is to perform a quiet ritual. It is to acknowledge the beautiful, futile human desire to stop time, to say, "This is us. This is what we built, remember this." And time, in its infinite patience, replied by breaking the stone, by scattering the fragments, by swallowing the names. It replied with silence. But in that silence, a deeper truth echoes. The former Urbis did not fail. It succeeded in a way its creators could never have imagined. It did not preserve the city of brick and mortar. It preserved the city of shadow and essence. It became a monument not to Rome's power, but to its loss. And in doing so, it became something more sacred than a record. It became a poem written in negative space and stone dust, about the fleeting nature of all things made by hands. So let us not seek to rebuild it in our minds. Let us not feverishly try to glue the fragments back into a whole that can never exist again. Instead, let us accept its invitation into the beautiful, melancholy state of not knowing. Trace the line of the aqueduct one last time. Follow it as it reaches the very edge of the fragment, where the marble ends in a rough, sudden break. The line does not stop. It travels off the stone, into the open air, into the dim light of this hall. It continues now in your mind. It flows into the blank space, the lost fragment, the forgotten district. It becomes a path leading nowhere, and everywhere. It leads into the soft, welcoming shadow of a lost time. Perhaps that was its purpose all along. Not to guide us to a place, but to guide us into a state of wonder. Not to show us what was, but to remind us of the vast, quiet ocean of what is gone. The map is complete in its incompleteness, whole in its brokenness. It is the shape of a city and the shape of forgetting. And in this sacred, silent hall of ghosts, that may be the most profound map of all, a red chart of the human soul, which builds its palaces of memory, only to have them slowly, gently reclaimed by the eternal, patient dark. The finger lifts from the stone, the light is gone. Only the echo of the line remains, and the shadow, deep and full of stars, awaits. The city that faded with the moonlight, it is said, deep within the northern Cambodian jungle. Where the earth breathes in moss and shadows, there lies a city that remembers how to forget. You do not approach it by road. You approach it by surrender. The modern world, with its noise and light, falls away. Stem by stem, leaf by leaf. The air changes. It becomes a velvet cloak, heavy with the scent of wet stone, of loam, of centuries of fallen leaves returning to the soil. The light, what little filters through the cathedral canopy high above, is not gold, but jade, a diffused underwater glow that seems to emanate from the forest itself. And then you see it, or rather, you see its bones, a causeway, a long, straight spine of laterite stone pushing through the living green. It is not a road for chariots or kings. It is an intention, carved through chaos. On either side, the guardians have fallen. Seven-headed stone Nagas. The great serpents of myth lie broken, their coils embraced by the roots of strangler figs. Their stone hoods, once flared in eternal warning, now cradle pools of rainwater and colonies of luminous moss. They do not bar your way. They simply watch with blank, unseeing eyes as you pass. They are not guarding a treasure. They are guarding a silence. This is Kokir, not a ruin, a recess, a place the world deliberately turned its back upon, allowing the jungle to draw a green curtain across its stage. For a brief, brilliant moment in the 10th century, it was the heart of an empire, a capital city of towering temples and sacred reservoirs. And then, as swiftly as a cloud passing over the moon, it was relinquished. The court returned to Angkor. The people followed. The city was left with its gods, its engines of devotion, and instruction whispered on the wind. Let it be. We arrive now as visitors to this emptied sanctuary, not as archaeologists with measuring tapes and theories, but as pilgrims to a mystery. We come not to excavate, but to listen, to stand in the green silence and hear the echo of a singular, haunting question. Why build a monument to the divine, only to offer it the most profound gift of all, your absence? Follow the causeway. Let your footsteps be slow, absorbed by the soft carpet of decay and new growth. The jungle parts reluctantly to reveal clearings, not man-made, but nature's reclamations. Here, a wall of intricately carved sandstone depicting celestial dancers, apsaras, frozen in mid-gesture. A tree has grown directly from the chest of one, its trunk a new woody heart, its branches becoming her outstretched arms. It is not destruction. It is a collaboration. The stone provides the form. The life provides the pulse. Ponds, once sacred buried, reflecting the sky, are now black mirrors choked with lily pads and lotus. The water is still, holding the inverted image of the jungle in its dark grasp. The temples themselves, the prasats, stand like solitary molars in a giant's jaw. Their doorways are empty squares of profound blackness. To look into them is to feel a gentle but insistent pull, a gravitational tug, not of earth but of purpose. And then you see it, the heart of the mystery, Prasat Tom. It does not look like the pyramids of Egypt or Mesoamerica. It is a mountain of ambition, a stepped pyramid of laterite and sandstone rising in 7 tiers against the green. It is stark, Geometric, a human attempt to build a axis mundi, a ladder between Earth and the realm of the gods. At its summit, a ruined sanctuary. But your gaze is not drawn upward to where the priests might have stood to greet the dawn. It is drawn downward to its base. There, at the pyramid's very root, is a square opening, a dark mouth in the earth. This is the central shaft, a vertical tunnel, plunging straight down through the pyramid's core, into the damp, secret heart of Baal, the world. It was not for burial. It was for installation, for anointing. Whispers tell us what lies at the bottom of that still black well, Alinga. A sacred representation of the god Shiva, the transformer, the cosmic dancer. Not a small idol on an altar, but a monumental cylindrical stone taller than a man. And it was not meant to be seen. Ever. Here, in the perpetual darkness, fed by a hidden engineered trickle of water from a nearby reservoir, the great linga would stand, bathed, anointed, cooled. It was a divine engine, a machine of perpetual devotion. The water, contacting the stone, became sanctified. It was then channeled away, unseen, to nourish something. The land, the kingdom, the cosmic order. The mechanism functioned on faith and hydrology, a closed loop of holiness that required no human priest to pour the libation, no human eye to witness the miracle. To stand at the mouth of that shaft is to experience a sacred trespass. You are at the threshold of a room designed for one occupant only. The air that rises from it is cool and carries a mineral scent, the breath of deep earth. You might drop a pebble. You will hear it strike stone, then water, a soft, wet plink that echoes once and is swallowed by the dark. That sound is a trespass. It is an interruption in a conversation that has been flowing, water over stone for 1,000 years. Why this magnificent, costly secrecy? Some believe it was the ultimate act of devotion, to remove the human intermediary entirely, to create a ritual so pure, so self-sustaining, that it could continue through the ages, long after the last worshipper had left, the last torch had guttered out. The city, then, was not an end in itself. It was the casing for this single, sacred battery. The pyramid was not a temple for congregation, but a housing. The city around it was the necessary infrastructure to build and maintain the god's invisible machine. And then, the work complete, the machine switched on. They left. Imagine the final day. The priests performing one last grand ceremony at the top of the pyramid, under the open sky, the chants fading, the procession forming along the very causeway we walked. Not a retreat from failure, but a deliberate, solemn withdrawal. They turned their backs on the city they had built, trusting that the true work, the silent, dark, watery anointing in the shaft, would continue. They left the god to his own devices. They allowed the jungle to step in as the new guardian, its roots sealing the gates, its canopy hiding the pyramid from the sun, its silence becoming the new liturgy. The city did not fall. It faded, like moonlight on water, steadfast through the night, but softening, dissolving, becoming one with the approaching dawn. The stones cooled. The carvings blurred under gentle, persistent lichen. The grand causeway was breached by saplings. The noise of human life was replaced by the drip of water, the rustle of leaves, the call of a distant bird. The purpose shifted from active worship to passive endurance. The machine was running, That was enough. The jungle night is absolute. The jade green light has vanished, replaced by a darkness so complete it feels like a presence. Above, through a rare break in the canopy, you might see a sliver of moon. Its light does not reach the forest floor here. It is too weak, too distant. It is a memory of light, and in this perfect dark, the truth of Koker settles upon you, soft as pollen. This place is not a testament to human achievement, though the achievement is staggering. It is a testament to human restraint, to the understanding that some sacred things are made more powerful by our absence, that the ultimate act of faith might be to build the altar, light the eternal flame, and then walk away, closing the temple door behind you forever. The linger in its shaft has never known moonlight. It has never known the gaze of a devotee. It has only known the constant, faithful kiss of the water in the dark. For 1,000 years, while empires rose and fell, while languages were born and died, while the world outside forgot this city's very name, that engine of devotion has been running, unseen, unthanked, uninterrupted. Perhaps that was the entire point of Koker. The city was never meant to be a permanent capital of men. It was a temporary workshop for the construction of a permanent gift to the divine, a gift that required the giver to vanish. We, standing here now in the consuming dark, are but fleeting shadows against an ancient, enduring process. Our curiosity, our awe, our theories, they are as inconsequential as moth wings brushing against the pyramid's stone. The real ceremony is below our feet, the silent conversation between water and stone, in a darkness older than history. So let us take our leave as the original inhabitants did, with reverence and with a quiet step, as we turn from the dark mouth of the shaft, from the brooding bulk of Prasat Tom, and begin our walk back down the green causeway. We do not carry answers. We carry a deeper, more resonant mystery. The jungle closes behind us, a living veil. The sound of our footsteps is lost, first in the moss, then in the chorus of night insects. We leave the city to its moonlight fate, not a death, but a diffusion, a return to the elemental, the stones to the earth, the canals to the water cycle, the sacred engine to its endless hidden task. It is still running. You can feel it in the silence, which is not an empty silence, but a full one. A humming silence, like the sound of a deep, slow bell after it has been stitched, its vibration transferred to the earth, to the water, to the roots of the world. The city that faded with the moonlight did not disappear. It simply changed its state of matter, from city to forest, from history to myth, from a place on a map to a feeling in the soul, a feeling of profound, purposeful abandonment, where the greatest offering was not what was built, but what was willingly, lovingly left behind. The path ahead is dark. The moonlight cannot find you here, but somewhere, deep in the heart of the world, water touches stone in the perpetual dark. And that is enough. It is more than enough. It is everything. The ink that dreamed of mountains. It is said that before a mountain can be climbed, it must first be dreamed, and before it can be dreamed, it must be given a name. In a chamber where time moves not in hours, but in the slow drying of ink, a moment of creation hangs in the lamplight. Here there is no scratch of pen, only the patient kiss of hair-soft bristles upon hungry silk. Watch now as the brush descends. It is laden not merely with the liquid, but with a substance of profound intention, a paste of pine soot, glue of hide, and water from a deep well, ground for a day and a night upon a silent stone. It touches the blank expanse, this waiting pale world of woven fiber, and there it bleeds. It bleeds not just a character, not just a word like mountain or river. It bleeds a possibility. The black spreads, a tiny contained dawn of darkness, forming the first stroke, a vertical line, strong as a spine. This is the act that begins all acts here, the giving of form to the formless. This is the covenant. The hand that guides the brush does not invent. It listens. It listens to echoes from beyond the 9 fields, from behind the curtain of the clouds, from the deep, silent places where the world is still soft, still being imagined. This ink. This ink holds the memory of mist. It remembers the weight of rock, the sigh of high passes, the cold kiss of altitude on a starless night. It is the seed from which entire ranges will now grow, silently, across the unrolling silk. We are not beginning a story of conquest or of kings. We are witnessing a ceremony of reception. We are opening a gate that was never closed, because it does not exist in wood or iron, but in the space between a thought and the mark that makes it real. This is the gate we step through now. Leave the known world at the threshold. Feel the solid floor of your reality grow soft, then silent, then distant as a forgotten star. We are entering the cartography of dream, the deepening mystery, a travelogue for the soul. The scroll unfurls with a whisper like wind over dunes. It bears a title, but not a title you can speak aloud. It is the Shanhai Jing, the classic of mountains and seas. To call it a book of monsters is to call the ocean a bowl of salt. It is a travelogue for a world that exists adjacent to our own, a world perceived not by the foot, but by the spirit. Not mapped by the compass, but by the ritual. Whispers tell us of its origins, that the great Yu, the Tamer of floods, in ordering the waters, also ordered the lands, the seen and the unseen, that he walked the 9 provinces, but his scribes recorded the 900. What they wrote down were not fantasies, but reports, accounts of a geography where meaning and matter are woven from the same thread. Let us journey to a single entry, a single line of this vast poetic atlas. Let us visit the mountain of luminous pearl. To the south, 300 leagues across the plain of whispering grass, stands a peak that gathers the dusk. Its stone is cool to the touch and holds a light within, like a pearl swallowed by the earth. At its summit, a tree grows that has no shadow. Can you see it? Not with the eyes in your head, but with the eyes that close to dream. Do not force the image. Let it emerge from the ink stain of the words as a landscape develops in a dark pool. A mountain that is not grey or brown, but the colour of a day-old moon with veins of something that glows softly. A captured piece of the Milky Way pressed into rock. The air around it hums with a quiet metallic chill. This is not a place of dramatic terror, but of serene, absolute otherness. It obeys its own laws, sings its own silent hymn to the heavens. And what lives upon such a mountain? The text tells us, with the calm detail of a naturalist observing a sparrow. Here dwells the bifang bird, azure and grey, with markings of cinnabar. It stands on one leg. When it departs, the wind rises and the rain prepares to fall. Behold this citizen of the luminous peak. It is not a monster. It is a creature of perfect elegant necessity, a bird of one leg. In our world, such a thing would be a tragedy, a creature maimed. Here, it is a principle made flesh. It is stability embodied, balance perfected. It does not hop, it is. It is a living milestone, a signpost written in feather and bone. Its single leg is not a lack, but a complete statement. When it chooses to leave, it does not simply flight. It unbalances the sky and the world responds with wind and rain. It is a creature whose very movement is a form of sacred weatherworking. And in the valley below, there is a beast here shaped like a bull, with a tail like a horse. Its name is Jiao. Its lowing is the sound of a great bell heard from far underwater. Where it walks, the earth yields tender shoots. Again, no horror. A quiet grazing being, a fusion of forms that to us seem separate. Cow and horse, plough and carriage, earth and journey. It is a union of meanings. Its voice is not a roar, but a deep, resonant call that stirs not fear, but fertility. It is a caretaker. Its strangeness is not meant to alarm, but to explain. It explains that in these dreamt lands, the essence of things, their purpose, their spirit, takes precedence over the form we find convenient. Here, a beast of burden and a beast of travel are one, because the land understands that to till is also to journey inward, and to journey is to cultivate the soul. This is the true nature of the Shanghai Jing. It is a lexicon of symbols written in landscape and fauna. A one-legged bird is a lesson in cosmic balance. A cow horse is a parable of unity. A luminous mountain is a meditation on inner light. The scholars who copied these texts, generation upon generation in lamplit rooms, they were not dupes transcribing nonsense. They were curators of a sublime mystery. They understood they were preserving a map they would never walk with their feet, but one they were required, duty-bound, to walk with their minds. Imagine them. The scrape of the inkstone, a rhythmic, meditative sound. The weary wrist, pausing over a description of the land of the featherfolk, where people are clothed in their own rainbow plumage. Did he, the scribe, look up from his task, out his small window at the mundane, rain-drenched hills of his province, and feel a pang of a longing so deep it had no name? Or was it a comfort? To know that just beyond the edge of the official maps, beyond the borders of the empire's tax rolls and garrison posts, there existed a world where rivers ran with jade and turtles carried the continents on their backs, and mountains floated like islands in a sea of cloud. He was not drawing fiction. He was performing an act of sacred preservation. With every character he faithfully copied, he was saying, I may never see this, but I swear to its possibility. I keep the gate open. I honor the dream. His manuscript was a candle lit in a window, a signal to those distant, impossible realms that they were still remembered, still believed in. The scroll was a conduit. The ink was the medium, and the belief was the current that flowed through it. The fade into silence, a map of the mind's hidden chambers. Now, let us pull back. Let the scroll of the mountain of luminous pearl roll shut, its silk ties fastened. Let us rise not back into our cramped chamber, but higher. Let us ascend until the lamplight is a single fading star below, and then vanish. We are floating now in a silent space above the entire dreamt cartography. Below us is not China, not Asia, not our Earth. Below us is the world the ink has birthed. We see the Kunlun Mountains, axis of the world, where the Queen Mother of the West tends her peaches of immortality. We see the moving sands, a desert that shifts like an ocean. We see the great abyss to the east, where the sun baths each dawn. We see the 8 pillars that hold up the sky, and the 4 seas that contain the deep. This is the ultimate revelation. The Shanhai Jing is not a map of the earth. It is a map of the mind. Its mountains are the peaks of thought, arduous and luminous. Its seas are the depths of emotion, turbulent and nurturing. Its strange creatures are the hybrid, unnameable feelings that dwell within us. The joy that is also sorrow, the courage that wears the face of fear, the memory that feels like a prophecy. The one-legged bird is our own precarious balance, our life spent standing on the single leg of the present moment. The cow horse is the merged burden and journey of our own destiny. The ancient scribes, in their profound wisdom, were not geographers of dirt and rock. They were cartographers of consciousness. They charted the interior wilderness. They gave names to the unnamed peaks within the human soul. The land of no pain is the state of meditation. The river of forgetting is the release of sorrow. The mountain that pierces the sky is the moment of transcendent understanding. The ink that dreamed of mountains was all along the ink of our own inner vision. It is the darkness inside the eyelid, fertile and full of potential shapes. It is the silent language we speak to ourselves in the moments before sleep. The Shanhai Jing is a mirror, held up not to the world, but to the vast, uncharted continent of the self. It tells us that our inner world is just as vast, just as populated with strange and wonderful things, just as worthy of exploration as any external wilderness. So as you drift now, on the edge of sleep, do not seek the mountain of luminous pearl on any earthly map. Seek it within. Feel for that inner peak that gathers your own dusk light, that quiet glowing certainty at your core. Listen for the call of your own strange hybrid creatures, the parts of you that defy simple category. You are a living Shanhai Jing. Your memories are its mountains. Your dreams are its seas. Your breath is the wind that turns its pages. Perhaps it was never meant to be found with a compass and a ship. Perhaps it was only ever meant to be remembered. The ink is dry now. The scroll is closed. The lamp gutters, its fuel spent. The chamber is dark and full of a silence that is not empty, but pregnant with all that has been spoken, and all that remains forever just beyond the next brushstroke. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen, and some maps are only read in the darkness, with the eyes of the spirit wide, wide open. Let the dreamt mountains rise now, in the sacred darkness behind your eyes. Let the silent geography unfold. You are the traveler. You are the scribe. You are the land. Sleep now and wonder. The gate. That was a memory. The invitation. The socket in the dark. Beneath the silence, there is a deeper silence. It waits in the loam of a hill that has forgotten its name, in a forest that remembers only the turning of seasons. Feel, for a moment, the weight of this darkness. Not the emptiness of a room at night, but the living, breathing darkness of the earth. A darkness that is cool, damp, and full of patient, rooted things. Here, between the grip of an ancient oak's roots and the slow journey of a stone worm, a circle was cut. Not a grave, not a hiding place, a socket. Imagine the act. 3,600 turns of the seasons ago. Hands not digging a hole, but carving a space. A perfect, round negation in the soil. They were making a mold for a memory too heavy for the mind to carry alone. They were preparing a bed for a kind of sleep, the sleep of light, of fixed points, of a story told not in words, but in the language of the fixed and the wandering flames above. Whispers tell us that on this hill, the Mittelberg, the boundary between earth and sky grew thin. Not a place of towering cliffs, but of subtle convergence, where the dome of the night pressed close to the whispering grass. And into this waiting socket, they placed an object. They covered it over. They walked away, leaving no marker, no mound, no story etched in stone. Only the earth, healing its own skin over a secret. This is where we begin, not with a shout of discovery, but with a listening. Kneel here in the mind's eye. Place your palm on the damp soil above that hidden circle. The cold seeps upward. The memory is not gone. It is suspended. It is waiting for the right kind of dark, the right quality of quiet to be heard again. This is the invitation, to forget what you know of maps and time, to feel, instead, for the outline of a gate that is not made of wood or stone, but of bronze and gold, and an idea so vast it had to be buried to be kept safe. Listen, the forest holds its breath, the gate that is about to be remembered, the deepening mystery, a frozen breath of night. When the earth finally yielded its charge, it did not come with a clap of thunder. It came with the soft, gritty scrape of a spade against corrosion and the sudden, shocking weight of a forgotten sky. Feel it in your own hands. The first sensation is of profound density. This is not a leaf, not a shard. It is a thing, a palm span of the cosmos, cast in metal, grown cold over millennia. The bronze is not a mere color. It is a condition, a skin of malachite green and earthy black, the very essence of deep time and wet soil. It is the color of the world turned inward, of ore returned to a state asleep. But then, your thumb finds a patch where the grime falls away. And there, beneath the accretion of ages, a light winks back. It is gold. Not the gold of kings or currency, but a different gold altogether. It is the gold of captured light. This is the first, the greatest alchemy. They did not mine this gold for trade. They mined it for metaphor. They sought the one substance on earth that refused to tarnish, that held the sun's own fire in its heart, and they said, This will be our sun. This will be our moon. This will be our untouchable stars. Let us read this metal poem, this sacred equation, line by slow line. First, the field, the dark bronze. This is the night itself, Not an empty night, but a specific night. The deepest, most profound dark of a world, without a single flame but those above. A dark so complete, it becomes a solid thing, a velvet bed for lights. Upon this, they laid the great graceful curves, 2 golden arcs along the rim, sweeping to meet, then falling away. For years, these were thought to be horizons, but they are something more beautiful, more mysterious. They are the solar bark, the ship that carries the sun on its journey through the underworld of night. They did not just show the sun, they showed its journey, its hidden passage through the realm of the unseen. This disk holds not just day and night, but the perilous, necessary voyage between them. Now, find the central icons, a full, radiant circle of gold, the sun at its zenith, its power, and beside it, a perfect, slim crescent. The moon, in its moment of delicate balance. They are not at odds. They are in conversation. They are the 2 breaths of the cosmos, the blazing, life-giving inhale, and the cool silver reflective exhale. And between them, a gata, a tiny, precise cluster of 7 golden dots, the Pleiades. To us, a star cluster. To them, the Weaver Maidens, the 7 sisters, the celestial marker that ruled the rhythms of sowing and reaping, of sealing treaties, of knowing when the world turned from growth to sleep. They are not decoration. They are the clockwork, the tiny glittering key that syncs the metal sky with the turning earth. And here lies the disk's most profound mystery. It has no horizon. There is no line of hills, no edge of sea. This sky is unmoored, eternal. It is the sky as seen from the soul, not from a hilltop. It is the essential sky. By removing the earth, they made the celestial truth absolute. This is the sky that exists when you close your eyes and remember the face of the night. It is a perfect portable memory. Who were they, these people of the unhurried culture? Who conceived this? They lived in a world of timber and field, of short, hard lives under an immense, uncaring sky. And yet, they performed this act of staggering intellectual art. They observed, they calculated, they unified. They took the chaotic, overwhelming dance of lights above and they fixed it. They made it knowable, holdable. This disk was not an ornamental fantasy. It was a tool of the deepest magic, the magic of knowing. It was a covenant with the cosmos, a promise that said, "We see your patterns, we honor your journey. We are not just creatures of the mud, we are witnesses to the eternal." But then, the final compelling act, they buried it. Why? Why take this masterpiece of astral understanding, this bronze tablet of holy law, and consign it to the hungry dark? It was not hidden from enemies. It was too sacred for that. It was not a votive offering in the typical sense. It was too complete for that. Perhaps it was seeded. Think of a farmer taking the most perfect plump grain from the harvest, not to eat, but to plunge back into the cold winter soil. It is an act of faith in a cycle larger than a single season. The disk was the perfect seed of knowing. By returning it to the earth, they were planting the sky. They were ensuring that the understanding, the covenant, would not be worn thin by use, corrupted by misinterpretation, or lost to the folly of men. It would be kept pure in the only vessel they trusted, the eternal, silent womb of the earth itself. The disk in the soil was a silent prayer. Let this knowledge be preserved in the darkness, so that it may inform the roots of the world and the roots of all who come after. Let heaven and earth be joined here in this secret, where memory becomes geology. The fade into silence, the sky swallowed whole. So we come to the end, which is also a return to the beginning. We must mimic the ancient act. We must, in our minds, lift the disk from the scholar's table, from the museum's sterile light. We must feel its cold weight one more time, the stars and sun pressing their impressions into our palm. And then we must kneel again on that misty hill. The socket in the earth is still there, a perfect memory in the soil. We lower the disk. It settles with a finality that is not a clang but a sigh. The sound of a key turning in a lock, it was always meant to fit. The gold symbols, for one last moment, catch the sliver of a real crescent moon hanging above the ancient oak. Then, darkness. We cover it. Handful by handful, the dark, fertile earth reclaims its own. The grass, with infinite patience, will stitch its green threads over the secret. The roots will curl around it in a silent embrace. The disk is gone. The gate is closed. What remains? Not an artifact. A memory of an artifact. A memory of a memory. The gate that was a memory. The disk itself was a gate, a man-made opening through which the mind could pass to touch the eternal, regular truth behind the chaotic sky. But that gate, by being buried, itself became a memory. Its physicality was surrendered so that its meaning could become absolute, archetypal, buried in the collective soul of the landscape and of those who would later feel its echo. When you stand under a clear, star-punched night now, feel the difference. The sky is no longer just a spectacle. It is a text. The Pleiades are not just pretty dots. They are the ancient ticking clock. The crescent moon is not just a phase. It is one half of a conversation with a missing sun. The Nebra sky disk did not change the heavens. It changed the human gaze. It taught us how to see the sky as a story, a law, a map of time. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps its burial was its final, most vital function, to be a secret known only to the earth and the sky. Our discovery of it is not a triumph, but an intrusion, a gentle one, perhaps, but an interruption of a 3,600-year-long ritual of silence. We hold a sacred silence in our hands, and in studying it, we break that silence forever. So let us end by restoring it, not in the physical earth, but here, in the darkening chamber of the listening mind. Let the image of the disk fade now. Let the gold sun dim. Let the crescent moon dissolve. Let the 7 stars scatter back into the unknowable multitude. Feel the weight leave your hands. You are left with the hill, the silent, mist-wrapped hill at dawn. The air is cool and clean. There is no marker, no sign, only the profound, peaceful certainty that somewhere beneath your feet, deep in the kindly, remembering dark, the sky is sleeping. A perfect, complete, and eternal sky. A gate sealed shut, its purpose fulfilled. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. And some gates are only opened when we are ready to close our eyes. Sleep now. And dream not of stars, but of the perfect, round, and waiting dark that holds them. The weaver whose thread was time. It is said that in the highest valleys of the Andes, where the air grows thin and the condors trace silent circles against a cobalt sky, there exists a particular quality of silence. It is not the silence of absence, but the silence of waiting, the silence of something holding its breath. Beneath this vast watching sky, in a chamber carved from living stone, a single beam of dusty light falls through a high, narrow window. It lands upon a table of polished cedar, worn smooth by generations of hands. And upon this table rests a coiled object, neither quite tool nor ornament, but something suspended between, a cascade of pendant cords, some the color of undyed alpaca wool, others dyed deep with cochineal and indigo, all descending from a single, thicker horizontal cord. This is a quipu, a knot, a question. Look closely in this half-light. See how the fibers catch the sun, how each tiny twist of thread throws a microscopic shadow. This is not a text to be read with eyes, but a landscape to be traveled with fingertips, a story waiting not for a reader, but for a listener. A weaver whose thread was time itself once sat here, and with nothing but string and intention, sought to bind the world's breath into knots. This is the story of that binding, the story of a language without letters, a history without ink, a voice that speaks only in the dialect of touch. Let us listen now, with more than our ears. Where memory fades, the hands remember. To understand this silent oracle, we must first contemplate the space from which it was born. The Inca, lords of the world's longest mountain range, architects of roads that clung to clouds, builders of empires without the wheel, also built their memory without the written word. There was no script, no glyph, no alphabet etched in stone or pressed into clay. There was, instead, a profound faith in the tangible. The world spoke through texture, through substance, through the very fiber of existence. And so, when the time came to remember, to hold the census of 1,000 valleys, the yield of 10,000 terraces, the lineage of a king, or the rhythm of Thel's stars, they did not write, they wove. The journey of a single quipu begins not with a thought, but with a touch. It begins with the hands of a spinner, seated in a sunlit courtyard, drawing cloud-soft fleece from the back of a vicuña. The spindle whirls, a humble hypnotist, and the fiber twists upon itself, gaining strength, gaining purpose. This act, so simple, so ancient, is the first knot in the narrative. The thread is born from partnership. The animal that offers its coat, the plant that gives its dye, the human that lends its intention. The ply of the cord, the direction of its twist, clockwise, counterclockwise, this is the first layer of meaning. A foundational grammar set before the first knot is tied. Now, see the main cord, the sturdy spine from which all stories will hang. It is often a deep, earthy brown, the color of fertile soil after rain. To this spine the maker attaches the pendant cords. Each pendant is a potential chapter, a tributary flowing from a great river. Some are bare the pale cream of a natural cotton. Others are dyed, a crimson pulled from the heart of a tiny insect, a blue as deep as Lake Titicaca at midnight, a yellow like the first light on a field of quinoa. Color is not decoration here. It is category, it is clan, it is sacred affiliation. A red cord may speak of the imperial bloodline, of Cusco itself. A green cord may whisper of the jungle's edge, of ceaseless rain and emerald shadows. And then the knots. Here, in the quiet of the keeper's chamber, the Kipu Kamayok, the true ceremony begins. The keeper's hands are not the hands of a scribe, stained with ink. They are the hands of a musician, a blind harpist preparing to play an instrument of memory. The fingers move to the first pendant. They do not look, they feel, they descend. The first cluster of knots is encountered. It is not a single knot, but a constellation. A complex bundle of loops, tied in a precise sequential order. The type of knot, a figure 8, a long knot with a specific number of turns, is the verb. Its position along the chord, high, low, in the middle, is the subject. The number of turns within the knot, or the number of knots in a cluster, is the object, the quantity, the heart of the data. A long knot with 4 turns, positioned high on a blue chord, might mean: from the eastern province, 4 caravans of lapis lazuli arrived under the full moon. The fingers travel downward, a slow pilgrimage. They feel the spaces between the knots. These empty stretches of chord are the pauses in the sentence, the breaths between words. They hold as much meaning as the knots themselves, a caesura in the narrative of numbers, perhaps indicating a shift in time, a change in topic, a moment of ceremonial silence in the recorded event. Let us imagine the story this particular quipu, resting in its beam of light, might hold. It is not a record of conquest or tribute alone. Perhaps this is a quipu of Genesis. The first chord, a pure white, untouched by dye, holds a single intricate knot at its very top. The moment of awakening, the breath of Viracocha, the creator, stirring the void. The next chord, a deep black, is knotted in a tight, complex cluster. The long sleep of the earth, the depth of primordial night. As the fingers drift downward, colors emerge. A brown chord records the forming of the mountains. Each knot a peak pushed toward the sun. A green chord holds the story of the first rain, the number of drops perhaps encoded in the turns of a long looping knot. A chord dyed with the brilliant gold of Kori flower might tell of the first sunrise. Its knots a precise record of the sun's path on the day it was deemed reborn. Further down, the chords divide. One branch, in shades of terracotta and clay, tells the story of a village's birth, the number of founding families, the layout of its first terraces, the yield of its first potato harvest. Each knot is a heartbeat of that community. Another branch, in the regal crimson and gold of authority, records a royal procession, the days of travel, the gifts exchanged, the agreements made, not with signatures, but with witnessed tactile vows captured in fiber. This is the profound mystery. The quipu is not a passive record. It is a tactile performance. To read it is to reenact it. The quipu Kamayok, feeling the harvest count, is not merely learning a number. Their fingers are tracing the rhythm of the scythes, feeling the weight of the gathered stalks, witnessing the communal sigh of a successful harvest, running their fingers over the knots of a battle. Though such grim accounts were often destroyed, they would feel not just the count of warriors, but the tension, the chaos, the terrible pauses encoded in the spacing and the tightness of the knots. The quipu is empathy made physical. History felt literally at your fingertips. And what of the whispers that some quipus held, not accounts but stories, myths, poems, that the most complex, those with subsidiary chords branching from subsidiaries, forming a fibrous cascading tree, were not ledgers, but epics. That the variations in spin imply in the subtle tension of a loop could convey metaphor, emotion, the scent of munya herb on a morning wind, the sorrow of a love lost to the frost. We cannot know. The last Kipukamayok, who could truly hear the full symphony in these strings, have long since joined their ancestors, their knowledge a tapestry unraveled by time. We are left with the knots, beautiful, precise, silent. The beam of light in the stone chamber has moved. It now only grazes the edge of the coiled kipu, setting its topmost chords aglow, while the lower ones retreat into soft, velvety shadow. The keeper's hands are still. Now let the scene dissolve. Let the stone walls fade into the smooth, cool glass of a museum case. The cedar table becomes a minimalist stand. The same kipu rests there, under a constant, artificial dawn. A small label sits beside it, Inca accounting device, C, 1450 CE. Visitors pass, they glance. They see a curious artifact, a primitive computer made of string. They see a puzzle to be solved. They do not see the spinner in the sunlight. They do not feel the weight of the Vikinga fleece, or smell the copper tang of the dye bath. They do not hear the profound, focused quiet of the keeper's chamber. A silence so deep it hummed with the memory of the world. The chord has become data. The story has become specimen. But if you stay, if you lean close, not to read the label, but to look, truly look, at the object itself, something else may happen. In the quiet of the museum hall, in the pause between footfalls, you might sense it. The kipu is not dead, it sleeps. Its stories are not gone. They are dormant, coiled within each knot like a seed waiting for a specific season of understanding. It rests now as a sculpture. Yes, but what a sculpture it is. It is the physical breath of a weaver captured. It is a map of a mind that thought in texture and number, woven into being. It is a constellation fallen to earth, its stars replaced by knots of cotton and wool. It is an echo grown solid. Perhaps it was never meant to be fully decoded by eyes that look for letters where there are none. Perhaps its true language, the language of touch, of rhythmic memory, of history felt in the palms of the hands, exists on a frequency we have merely forgotten how to hear. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen with more than our ears, when we are ready to remember that our first language was not spoken, but felt. A touch, a grip, a knot. So let us leave it here in its silent case, a testament not to what was lost, but to what was once so brilliantly, so beautifully made. A universe of meaning, suspended from a single cord, a weaver whose thread was time, whose loom was the world, whose tapestry was memory itself. And as the last thought drifts away, hold only the image, a cascade of colored strings falling into shadow, each knot a closed eye, dreaming of the day it will be felt and understood once more. The story is over. The string remains. Listen. The library that sank into sand, it is said that memory has weight, that a story, when written down, becomes a physical thing. A stone to be carried, a seed to be buried. In the forgotten corners of the earth, beneath the sun-scorched hills of northern Iraq, there lies a city twice dead. First to the sword, then to the sand. Its name is Nineveh, and beneath its dust, in a tomb not of marble, but of earth, in a sarcophagus not of stone, but of silence, there waits a library. But this is no library of parchment and wood, susceptible to flame and worm. This is a library of earth, written in earth, returned to earth for safekeeping. Imagine, if you will, a corridor deep within a royal palace. The air, once perfumed with cedar oil and myrrh, now tastes of powdered brick and ancient smoke. The great cedar roof beams, once holding up a kingdom's glory, have groaned, splintered, and crashed down in a symphony of collapse. Through the shattered walls, a terrible orange light once flickered, not the gentle light of lamps, but the hungry light of conquest. That light has long since gone out. Now, there is only a perfect, profound dark, a dark so complete it feels less like an absence and more like a presence. A velvet shroud laid over the shoulders of the past. And within this dark, resting on shelves of baked brick that have slumped into gentle curves, are thousands of small rectangular shadows. They are tablets of clay, each one the size of a human palm, each one inscribed with a language of tiny, wedge-shaped punches. They are waiting. They have been waiting for 2,500 years. Not to be read, but to be remembered. This is the story of their great sleep. The story of a library that did not burn, but was baked. That was not lost, but deliberately, catastrophically saved. A library that had to sink into the sand so that one day its whispers might rise again. Where memory fades, the clay remembers. To understand this paradox, that destruction became the great preserver, we must first step back into the last moments of light. The year is 612 before the Common Era. The great Assyrian Empire, the terror and the wonder of the world, is crumbling under a siege of its own making. Outside the colossal walls of Nineveh, the Tigris River runs red, not with sunset, but with reflection of fire. The combined armies of the Babylonians and the Medes are at the gate. The air, once still and heavy with heat, now vibrates with the shriek of arrows, the thunder of rams, the scream of a civilization in its death throes. And deep within the palace of Ashurbanipal, the last great king, the scholar king, there is a different kind of trembling. It is the quiet tremor in the hands of the scribes. They are not soldiers. Their weapons are styluses of reed. Their battleground is wet clay. For years, under the king's obsessive command, they have been building an ark. Not an ark of wood for animals, but an ark of knowledge for the soul of a world. They have gathered every text they could find, from the courts of Babylon, from the temples of Sumer, from the dusty archives of forgotten cities. They have copied epic poems, astronomical charts, medical prescriptions, royal decrees, omens read from sheep livers, prayers used to gods whose names would soon be spoken only in curses. Each tablet is a snapshot of a living, breathing, fearing, hoping mind, a receipt for 5 sacks of barley, a love incantation, a description of a fever, the epic tale of a hero king who fought gods and monsters, only to learn the bitter lesson of mortality. Now, the enemy is in the streets. The smell of smoke acrid and insistent, curls under the door. The scribes flee, or they die. The library is abandoned. And then the fire comes. It sweeps through the palace like a wrathful spirit. It consumes the tapestries, the furniture, the wooden shelves. It melts the gold and silver. It turns limestone to quicklime. The heat becomes unimaginable. And here, in the heart of the inferno, occurs the miracle. The clay tablets, which in normal times would have simply dried and over centuries crumbled back to dust, are subjected to a divine violence. The fire bakes them. It vitrifies them. It turns them from fragile mud into ceramic stone. The very flames meant to erase a kingdom become the kiln that hardens its memory for eternity. The palace walls, made of mud brick, groan in the heat. They do not melt, but they slump. They collapse inward and outward. And as they fall, they bury the library. They seal it in a massive accidental crypt. The fire dies, starved of air. The conquerors loot what glitter remains on the surface and move on. Rain falls, wind blows, and slowly, patiently, the desert begins its work. It is a gentle entombment. Grain by grain, the sand sifts down through the rubble. It fills the corridors. It covers the tablet piles. It layers itself, year upon year, century upon century, until the great mound that was Nineveh is just another hill on the plain, grazing ground for goats, a place for shepherds to tell tales of the giants who once lived there. Beneath that hill, the silence deepens. It is a silence of perfect preservation. No root seeks the tablets, for they are stone. No worm travels through them, for they are sterile. No air touches them to cause decay. They lie in a timeless, dry, cool dark. The stories within them are suspended, like insects in amber. The fears, the dreams, the calculations, all are frozen in mid-thought. Wisters tell us of one such tablet, a fragment no larger than your hand. If you could hold it in the dark, you would feel its weight, solid and cool. Run your fingertips across its surface, and you would trace the ghost of a scribe's pressure. The sharp triangular tip of a reed pressed into soft clay, creating a series of wedges, a cuneiform script. This particular tablet holds a part of the oldest great story we know, the Epic of Gilgamesh. On it is inscribed the tale of Gilgamesh's desperate journey to find Utnapishti, the immortal flood survivor. The hero has just lost his wild companion, Enkidu. Grief has hollowed him. Terror of his own end has ripped him. He crosses the waters of death. He pleads for the secret of eternal life. And Utnapishti, in a voice that has echoed through 4,000 years of silence, gives him a bitter, beautiful answer. He tells Gilgamesh of a plant at the bottom of the sea, a plant that can restore youth. Gilgamesh dives, retrieves it, only to have it stolen by a serpent while he sleeps. The king weeps. He returns to his city, Uruk, empty-handed. But he returns having learned the only immortality available to mortals: to build something that lasts, to have one's name spoken on the works of one's hands. The scribe who pressed those wedges into the clay never knew. He never knew that the empire that paid his wages would vanish in fire. He never knew that the language he wrote in would fall silent for millennia. He never knew that the very palace around him would become a kiln and a tomb for his words. He was simply doing his job, capturing the old story, worrying perhaps about the smell of smoke on the wind, about his family in the city below. And therein lies the profound, quiet mystery. This library was not meant for us. It was not a time capsule launched into the future. It was a working collection, a king's vanity, a scholar's tool. Its preservation was an accident of catastrophic violence. The sand that buried it was not a careful curator, but the indifferent blanket of time. The library did not survive, in spite of the destruction of Nineveh. It survived because of it. The fire that erased a city hardened its voice. The sand that buried a palace sealed a memory. For centuries, beneath that silent hill, the epic of a king seeking eternal life slept beside tax records and star charts. The quest for immortality lay cradled in the same earth as lists of linen and copper. The sacred and the mundane, the poetic and the bureaucratic, all were rendered equal by the impartial fire. All were made eternal by the same act of violence. The dark of the buried corridor is absolute once more. The imagined weight of the tablet fades from your hand. Now let the scene shift. Let the cool, silent tomb of earth become the clean, climate-controlled quiet of a museum vault. The tablet fragment rests on a foam cushion within a glass case. A LED light, cool and unchanging, illuminates its surface. The cuneiform wedges are clear, sharp, a topography of decision made by a long-dead hand. Scholars have translated it. They know its lines by heart. It is catalogued, photographed, studied. Yet, in this new silence, something else whispers. It is not the story on the tablet, but the story of the tablet. Look at it. See the slight warping from the heat of the palace fire. See the tiny grains of sand still fused to its edges. The very sand that was its blanket for 2 millennia. This object is a bridge. Its top surface holds the oldest lament for mortality we have. Its very substance is the proof of a city's violent end. It is both message and medium, story and survivor. The library of Ashurbanipal did not sink into sand to be forgotten. It sank into sand to be kept. It was a great subconscious act of cosmic filing. The earth itself saw the storm coming and pulled the most precious pages into the deepest drawer. Perhaps some voices are too fragile for the open air of history. Perhaps some truths are so vast they require the patience of geology to hold them. A papyrus scroll would have vanished in that fire. A parchment codex would have dissolved in that damp earth. But clay, humble, universal, child's play, clay, it endured. The simplest material became the most eternal. Perhaps it was never meant to be found by the generation that buried it, or the next 1,000. Perhaps its rediscovery in the 19th century, by archaeologists who brushed away the sand with careful hands, was always part of its story. A story that could only be told once the world was ready to listen to a different kind of king. Not a king of conquest, but a king of questions. Not a king who built with stone, but a king who built with words, and whose words were saved by stone. So we leave the tablet in its case. A piece of a palace, a piece of a poem, a piece of a planet. A voice from a library that had to be burned to be born again. That had to be buried to be raised up. That had to sink into the utter silence of sand, so that one day its single, unwavering whisper could be heard above the roar of all the ages that followed. The fire is out. The sand is still. The word remains. The garden that grew from a word. It is said, in the soft dust where memory fades, that there exists a gate. Not a gate of iron or of splintered cedar, but a threshold made of air and longing. You will not find its archway in any desert now. Your hands will pass through it as through a warm wind. But if you stand very still, in that hour when the world holds its breath between the last star and the first bird's call, you might sense it. A scent arrives, unbidden. A phantom perfume of night-blooming jasmine, of damp earth that has no right to be damp in such a dry and ancient land. It is a scent that carries on its back the weight of water, the cool whisper of shade in a world of relentless sun. This is the invitation. Not to a place, but to a silence that hums with the echo of a word. A word spoken centuries upon centuries ago, into the parchment of a wandering historian, into the ear of a drowsy king, into the collective dream of a civilization. That word was garden, but not just any garden, a hanging garden, a mountain of leaves built by human hands, ascending towards heaven in a spiral of impossible green. This is the gate we approach tonight, not to dig for its stones, for they are smoke, but to listen, in the quiet of your own mind, for the rustle of its leaves. Whispers tell us it was in Babylon, that golden baked brick city where the Euphrates moved slow as history itself. A city of cigarettes that scratched at the belly of the sky, of processional ways, trod by the feet of gods and kings. And for one king, they say, a queen from a faraway green land lay in her marble chambers and dreamed of the misty, forested hills of her home. Her heart grew pale and thin in the flat, sun-bleached expanse. And so the king, in a gesture of love that has since become the stuff of the celestial allegory, commanded a miracle. Not just a garden, but an argument against nature, a rebuttal in vine and blossom to the very desert itself. Close your eyes now, and see it through the words of those who came after. Men who walked its paths only in the libraries of their own minds, piecing together reports from travelers whose tongues were thick with wonder. First you must build a mountain where no mountain stands. See the great baked bricks, not set upon the earth, but raised upon a forest of stone pillars and vaults, a cavernous artificial hill. Now, upon this human-made mountain, spread a skin of fertile soil, so deep the roots of great trees could plunge into it and never find the brick below. This was the first act of faith, to believe that life could be held aloft, suspended between the hard reality of the desert and the soft dream of paradise. Then, the water. The water. In a land where the river was life itself, the miracle was not the river, but the lifting of it. Imagine, if you will, the sound, not the crash of a waterfall, but the slow, patient, rhythmic groan of hidden machinery. The creak of the shadouf, the great counterweighted sweep of the irrigation lever, the endless groaning spiral of the Archimedes screw, though Archimedes was not yet born, turning within its wooden sheath, powered by the strong sun-browned backs of unseen gardeners. With each turn, a gasp of river water was lifted, from level to level, defying its own weight, its own desire to return to the flat earth. It was a symphony of hydraulics, a hymn sung not with voices, but with the protest of wet wood and the slap-slap of leather buckets on stone canals. And upon this lifted, watered earth, the garden awoke. It did not simply grow, it cascaded. It spilled over the edges of its terraced ledges like a green flood frozen in time. Vines became waterfalls of emerald and amethyst wisteria. Cypress trees, those dark, solemn sentinels, stood guard beside perfumed thickets of myrtle and saffron crocus. Date palms offered their sweet, heavy fruit, while fig trees spread their generous, shade-dappled canopies. And everywhere, the roses. Not the disciplined blooms of a palace planter, but a riot of them. Their petals carpeting the moist paths, their scent so thick it felt like a second breathable sky. The light here was not the harsh, revealing light of the Mesopotamian plain. It was fractured, softened, made sacred by a million leaves. Sunbeams fell through this living lattice, not as arrows, but as slow drifting dust, illuminating a single dewdrop on a spider's web here, the iridescent wing of a beetle there. It was a world within a world where the hot, dust-laden wind of the outside was filtered into a cool, murmuring breeze that spoke only of growth and decay, of petal fall and new shoot. Up and up the terraces spiraled, each level a new discovery, until at the very summit, the visitor, be they homesick queen or awestruck ambassador, could stand amidst the treetops and look out. To one side, the relentless, tawny expanse of the empire. To the other, this private, verdant cosmos, humming with bees and dripping with mist from the hidden screws. This is the garden built from words, from the eager, embellishing pen of Berossus the Chaldean, from the meticulous, yet second-hand catalogue of Strabo, from the tantalizing, unresolved mention in the tablets of history. They painted it for us, stroke by lyrical stroke, until its image was fixed in the firmament of human imagination, brighter and more enduring than any consolation. But now we must let the light change. We must allow a different, colder sun to rise over our dream. Archaeologists, those gentle sifters of dust, have turned over the earth where Babylon slept. They have mapped its walls, traced its streets, deciphered the boasts of its kings, inscribed on clay and stone. And in all that tangible record, in all those meticulous lists of conquest and construction, the hanging gardens leave no footprint, no aqueduct grand enough, no foundation strange enough, no mention in the royal chronicles of a project so staggering, so dripping with hydrological genius. The very bricks of Babylon are silent on the matter. The physical stones, it seems, fade. They soften at the edges, like a landscape dissolving into a morning fog. The creaking of the water screws grows faint, then ceases. The perfume of jasmine and rose thins, carried away on that same dry wind it once defied. What we are left with is not an emptiness, but a shadow, a shape etched not on the earth, but on the soul of time itself. For the true mystery of the hanging gardens is not where they began or even if they were. The mystery is why the story would not die, why this particular dream of lifted green persisted, fertilized by generations of elling, until it was named one of the 7 wonders of the world. a title belonging not to the realm of inventory, but to the realm of legend. Perhaps it is because the garden was never just a garden. It was an act of supreme, defiant tenderness. A love poem written not in verse, but in root and rivulet. It represented the human refusal to accept the given world. To say to the desert, you are not all there is. To say to the sun, you shall not scorch everything. It was the embodiment of the longing to create life, to nurture it, to raise it up towards the light, even when, especially when, the environment is hostile to that very act. The hanging gardens are the dream of every exile for a remembered homeland. The dream of every builder who looks at a blank space and sees a sanctuary. The dream of every heart that seeks to make a beautiful, sheltered, growing thing in a landscape of hardship. They are the idea of Eden, not as a lost past, but as a future we can build with our own hands and will. A paradise not granted, but engineered. A covenant with life itself. So let us not mourn the stones we cannot find. Let us, instead, step back into that shadow garden, which is now and has always been its truest form. It exists now in the quiet space behind your eyelids. It is the memory of a place you have never been. Can you hear it? Not the creak of the screws, but the deeper silence they served. The silence of deep soil, of roots drinking, of cells dividing in the dark. It is the sound of growth itself. Walk its paths now, in your mind. They are not made of stone, but of intention. The trees are pillars of resilience. The flowers are bursts of persisted hope. The water that feeds them is the endless, upward lifting river of human care. The care of a gardener for his seedlings, of a storyteller for his tale, of a dreamer for his vision. This garden does not belong to Babylon. Babylon itself is dust. It belongs to you. It belongs to anyone who has ever looked at a cracked, barren place, in the earth or in their own life, and whispered a word of green against the silence. That word takes root. That word finds invisible aquifers. That word grows terrace by terrace until it becomes a sanctuary in your private sky. Perhaps the historians did not need to see it with their eyes. Perhaps they saw it with the only organ that truly matters for such visions, the heart. They described it for us because they knew we would need it. A compass point in our collective story, always pointing not to the past, but to a possibility. A testament that our greatest creations are not always those that withstand the siege of armies, but those that withstand the siege of time and disbelief by becoming more than physical, by becoming necessary. The night is deep now. The gate of air and longing is still open. The scent of a phantom jasmine mingles with the cool air of your own room. Let the dream of the garden become your own. Let its terraces spiral gently into the landscape of your approaching sleep. For it was never a place to be excavated. It was and is a word, a single, fertile, everlasting word. And from that word, a garden forever grows. The mask that held an empty breath, it is said, in the deepest silences, between the heart's beat and the soul's whisper. That a shape can hold an echo, not of sound, but of space. A vessel can be crafted so perfectly for a thing, a breath, a name, soul, that long after the thing has departed, the vessel itself begins to sing of the absence. It becomes a map, not of what is, but of what has slipped away into the great silent tapestry of time. Come then, let us drift back, not with the clatter of excavation, but with the slow sinking feeling of memory returning in a dream. Picture a hillside in a land of burnt umber and olive grey. The wind here does not gall. It sighs, moving across the stones like a mourner at a forever vigil. The sun is a low, diffused coin behind a veil of high cloud, casting the world in a light that is neither day nor twilight, but something in between, the eternal light of in-between. Here, the earth holds its secrets close, wrapped in strata of clay and forgetting, and in one particular fold of this ancient ground, a darkness has been perfect and complete for 3,000 years. Not a darkness of menace, but of profound keeping, the kind of darkness found in the deepest chamber of a temple behind the final veil. It is the darkness that exists under a palm pressed gently over closed eyelids. It is patient. It has been waiting. And within it, upon a stone bed that is now little more than a suggestion in the soil, lies a form of impossible serene gold. This is our gate. Not a gate of stone or cedar, but of beaten metal and intent. The mask. First, we must feel the hands that shape the vessel. They are not the hands of a king, but of an artisan whose name is lost to the very dust that now cradles his creation. His world is one of bronze and smoke, of clay tablets etched with the angular, urgent script of the Mycenaean palace. A world alive with the clamour of chariots, the scent of roasting meat and crushed herbs, the drone of bardic song telling of gods and sieges. But in his workspace, there is a pocket of quietude. The air is still, heavy with the perfume of heated beeswax and the ghost of wood smoke. Before him lies not a block of stone to be conquered, but a sheet of gold. It is not the garish, bright gold of later trophies. This gold has a depth, a whisper of rose and honey, caught within its substance as if it remembers the fire that birthed it from the earth's heart. He has a wooden form, carved from seasoned cedar, a smooth, anonymous oval with the subtle ridges of a brow, the gentle slope of a nose, the full, calm curve of a mouth. It is not a portrait. It is an ideal, a face stripped of all that is fleeting, worry, laughter, fatigue, leaving only the archetype of majesty, of eternal repose. Watch his hands. They are strong, scarred from metal and tool, yet their touch is one of supreme delicacy. He places the gold sheet over the wood. Then, with a tool of smoothed antler and a mallet wrapped in lamb's wool, he begins to coax. This is not hammering. It is a kind of persuasion, a slow, rhythmic tap, tap, tap. A conversation between intention and material. With each gentle blow, the metal yields, flowing like liquid light over the wooden bones. It learns the form. It embraces the hollow of the eye sockets, the bridge of the nose, the soft swell of the lips. He works not to capture a likeness, but to create a sanctuary, a perfect, seamless skin waiting for its tenant. The mask takes shape, and in its forming, it acquires its expression. The lips are full, closed. At their corners, the metal is persuaded into the faintest, most enigmatic uplift. It is not a smile of joy, nor of knowing. It is the archaic smile. A smile that speaks of a state beyond mortal concerns. A serenity achieved not through life, but through its solemn conclusion. It is the smile of a secret understood, a threshold crossed. The artisan steps back, his breath held. In the flicker of the oil lamp, the mask looks back at him, not as a mirror, but as a door that is, for now, closed. Now let the scene shift, as dreams do. The quiet workshop dissolves into the scent of myrrh and damp earth. We are in the tomb. The air is thick, cold, final. The prince, or was he a king? His name is already fading from the tongues of the living, soon to be a gap in the clay tablet lists, lies upon his stone couch. He has been anointed, wrapped, adorned with seals and amulets of lapis and carnelian for his journey. His face, once animated by thought and breath, is still. It is the face of a man, with all its particularities, its memories etched in lines and scars. Then the hands return. Different hands now. The hands of priests, their movements choreographed by sacred ritual. They lift the golden mask. For a moment it hangs in the torchlight. A second, more perfect moon. Then, with infinite care, it descends. It settles upon the still features beneath. There is a soft, final sound. The whisper of perfect metal meeting cold skin. A seal is made. This is the moment of the empty breath. The mask is no longer just a vessel of gold. It is a vessel of intention. It has been placed to hold the identity, the psyche, of the one beneath, to give a face to the soul as it navigates the terrors and wonders of the underworld. It is the anchor of self in the voyage into oblivion. The breath of the man has stilled, but the mask holds the shape of where a breath would be. It holds the space for a voice that has ceased. It is full of a sacred, appointed emptiness. The torches are withdrawn. The great stone slab grates across the entrance. A sound that echoes once, then is swallowed. Darkness, absolute and timeless, reclaims its domain. Centuries begin their slow march. Above, empires rise and fall like waves. The language of the mask makers becomes indecipherable, then forgotten. The location of the hill itself fades from map and memory. The name of the sleeper. It has long since unraveled, thread by thread, until not even a ghost of a syllable remains. He is not Agamemnon, nor Achilles, nor any hero of song. He is the unknown. He is the one who slept. And all the while, in the silent dark, the mask does its duty. It holds. The face beneath it, the flesh and bone that gave it meaning, submits to the patient alchemy of time. It becomes a fine grey dust. It becomes earth, returning to the hill from which it came. The body vanishes, but the vessel remains. The perfect, hollow form, now holding nothing but the echo of its own purpose. Then, a crack, not of thunder, but of a spade biting into ancient soil. Light, fierce and alien, floods the chamber after 3 millennia of perfect night. Rough hands, driven by scholarship and wonder, brush away the crust of ages. The torchlight, now the electric stark light of a modern age, falls upon the metal. And there it is. The mask gleams, not with the soft glow of lamp oil, but with its own innate, untarnished truth. They lift it. Beneath it, the stone couch holds only the delicate, ghostly imprint of a form, a silhouette of dust. The skull has crumbled to a mere stain. The name is a void. The discoverers will call it the Mask of Agamemnon, a desperate, hopeful stitch to connect it to the great tapestry of epic. But the mask does not answer to the name. It never did. We are left, you and I, gazing not at a portrait, but at a paradox. This object, created to preserve a specific identity, achieved the opposite. It erased him. The man is gone, utterly. But the mask, his anonymous ideal shell, achieved immortality. It is more famous, more studied, more seen in its beautiful emptiness than the person it was made to remember. It sits now behind glass in a museum's hushed hall. Crowds pass before it, whispering of kings and Trojan wars. But if you listen with the ear of the dreamer, in the quiet of your own night, you might hear its true song. It is a song of exquisite melancholy. It sings of the artisan's faith, the priest's ritual, the prince's hope for remembrance. And it sings, most poignantly, of the ultimate victory of the anonymous. It is a hymn to the void that shapes us all. The slight archaic smile now seems to hold a secret far deeper than any mystery of lineage or treasure. It holds the secret of the ephemeral. It smiles at our frantic need to be remembered, knowing that all flesh is grass and all names are eventually written in water. Yet, in that smile, there is no cruelty, only a serene acceptance. The mask succeeded not in preserving a man, but in preserving the idea of a man. It is a vessel that once held a singular, precious breath. Now it holds the breath of history itself, the collective sigh of all that is lost, all that is beautiful, all that remains stubbornly, eloquently here, even when its meaning has departed. Perhaps it was never meant to be found, only to be. A perfect, silent companion to the long dark. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen to the silence between the notes. So let us leave it there. In the mind's eye, let the museum light soften back to torchlight, then to starlight filtering through a disturbed tomb door. Let the glass case become stone again. Let the chatter of the crowd fade into the sigh of the wind over that lonely Greek hillside. The mask is alone once more. A perfect skin of gold, holding an empty breath. A vessel for a vanished king. A mirror reflecting our own fleeting faces. Our own names waiting to fade. Our own breaths destined to join the infinite air. And in its serene, hollow gaze, we find a strange, comforting peace. For in acknowledging the void, we touch the eternal. Not the eternal of the individual, but the eternal of the craft, the ritual, the beautiful, futile, and profoundly human attempt to say, I was here. The light now is the soft blue light just before true sleep claims the world. The mask's features soften, blurring at the edges of thought. The archaic smile is the last thing to fade, lingering in the darkness behind your own closed eyelids. A curve of the moonlight on still water. A secret kept, not from you, but for you. And then, silence. A breath held, then gently released, empty and full. The path that was washed away by rain, it is said that the most sacred paths are not those paved with stone, but those worn smooth by the souls of the hopeful. In a forgotten corner of the earth, where the Aegean sun turns the hills to gold and the sea to beaten copper, there lies such a way. You will not find it on any map drawn by kings. You must feel for it with your feet, in the dry soil between the thistle and the wild thyme. Come, stand here at the valley's edge. Look up. The mountain is not a jagged thing of terror, but a sleeping giant, its back a gentle slope against the immense bowl of the sky. See there, a faint discoloration in the grass, a slight yielding of the earth that traces a line upwards, like the faintest breath upon a mirror. That is all that remains of the gate. Not an arch of marble, but a subtle turning in the land, an invitation written in dust and root, a single sun-warmed stone, rounded by centuries of wind, sits just where the flat land begins to think of ascent. Place your hand upon it. It is not cold. It holds the memory of 1,000 noons. This is the first step, the only step, the step that contains all steps. Listen, not with your ears, but with the silence behind them. The wind here does not howl. It hums. It is the sound of a vast, empty chapel. A chapel whose roof is the dome of the sky, whose pillars are the distances themselves. This is the threshold. Beyond it, the world of fields and fences falls away. You are about to enter a space between earth and heaven, a space made not by hands, but by journeying. Whispers tell us that the people who lived in the shadow of this mountain did not build towers to scrape the clouds. They walked towards them. Their temples were not enclosed spaces where light was rationed by narrow windows, but the open peaks where light was endless, and the wind could take your breath as an offering. This path, this ghost of intention we now follow, was their nave. Their pilgrimage was not to a relic in a box, but to the very source of the breeze, to the place where you could see the curve of the world. So we begin. The path does not charge straight up. It understands the body. It turns, it rests, it switches back upon itself with the patience of a serpent basking. With each step, the scent changes. The damp, green smell of the valley floor rises to meet the dry, mineral perfume of crushed rock and the pungent, honeyed sigh of mountain thyme. The air itself thins, not to deprive, but to clarify. Each breath becomes a conscious act, a drawing in of sky. Feel the texture beneath your imagined feet. Not cobbles, but exposed bedrock, polished to a soft sheen by countless sandals. In places, a seam of quartz winks up, a star caught in the dust. In others, a shallow groove has been worn, a channel made not with water but by the unwavering passage of human feet, all pointing in one direction, up. They were farmers, herders, potters, mothers. They came with the dust of their trades upon their hands, with the worries of their hearts held close. They did not come to hear a priest's incantation, but to become their own priests. Their liturgy was the climb. Their hymn was their own steady breath. And in their hands they carried their prayers, not inscribed on gold or sealed in tombs, but formed from the most humble of thanks. The very earth they tilled, brown river clay, gathered from the bank, pinched and shaped by work-roughened fingers into something precious. A tiny, crudely fashioned bull, its horns simple curves. A human figure, arms raised not in triumph, but in vulnerable supplication. A sheep, a dove, a coiled serpent. These were the votives, the sacred cargo. As you climb, hold this thought in your palm. The weight of a small clay bull. Feel its solid, earnest fragility. It is cool from the shade of its maker's home, but it warms slowly in the climber's grip. It is not art for a palace. Its lines are uneven. A thumbprint is pressed deep into its flank, the maker's signature written in pressure. This bull is a life, a prized animal one hopes the gods will protect. This human figure is a self-portrait, a daughter one prays will find health, a son one hopes will return from the sea. The prayer is not in the speaking, but in the carrying. Every scuff of the path, every labored breath on a steep section, every pause to wipe sweat from the brow, is a bead on the rosary of this journey. The plea is baked into the clay by the sun, and then it is baked again into the soul by the effort of the clay. And now, the trees begin to bow away. The world opens. You emerge not onto a built plateau, but into a revelation of space. You have reached the summit sanctuary, but forget the word sanctuary as you know it. There is no roof, no altar stone hewn by masters. There is only the enormous whispering silence of the sky and the wide flat table of wind-scoured rock. This is where they stood, heart pounding from the climb, not from fear, but from the sheer physical awe of arrival. Here, the wind is a constant presence, a cleansing force that sweeps thought clean. You can see the island unfolding below you like a discarded cloak of green and brown, stitched with silver threads of river, hemmed by the endless shifting blue of the sea. You are level with the clouds. The gods, if they are anywhere, are here, in this breathless space between realms. And look down at your feet, scattered across the rock, catching the long golden hour light, are the silent ones, hundreds, thousands, ghosts of terracotta, a congregation of miniatures. Here, a cluster of bulls seems to huddle against the wind. There, a line of human figures faces the distant Mount Ida, their featureless faces turned towards the abode of something greater. They are not arranged with ceremony, but placed with personal tenderness. In a hollow of rock, nestled against a stone lined up on a ledge to face the dawn. Imagine the moment of leaving. The pilgrim kneels on the hard rock, the warmth of the clay figure meeting the cool, ancient stone of the mountain. There is no grand pronouncement. Perhaps a whisper is stolen by the wind the moment it leaves the lips, a touch of the forehead to the offering, and then it is done. The prayer is transferred. The weight in the hand is gone, replaced by a different weight in the heart. The weight of hope now shared with the universe. The figure is left behind, a tiny, fragile anchor tethering a human wish to this wild, eternal place. The descent is different. The body is lighter, but the spirit is full. The path is the same, yet it has been transformed by the act of completion. It is no longer a question, but an answer. But what of the prayers, left to the sky and the stone? Time, here, is not a sculptor. It is a gentle dissolver. It sends its agents. The first is the sun, which over decades, centuries, bleaches the terracotta from rich brown to the pale pink of a fading seashell. Then comes the frost, which enters the tiny, invisible cracks made by the firing. and with a tender, relentless pressure, begins to break the bonds of form. And then, the rain. It does not come as a flood, but as a whisper. A soft, persistent whisper that falls on the mountaintop, finding every miniature bull, every human figure exuding. It washes over them, not with violence, but with an infinite patience. It dissolves the clay, grain by grain, softening the sharp edges of horn and shoulder. The thumbprint, the maker's mark, is the first to go, smoothed back into anonymity. The rain carries the dust, the very essence of the prayer, down the mountain. It traces the path, that same sacred path, now becoming a channel for its own dissolution. The clay runs in rivulets of red-brown seeping back into the soil, nourishing the roots of the thyme it once smelled on the climb. The path itself begins to soften. The groove worn by feet is blurred by runoff. Grass seeds, carried by the same wind that heard the whispers, take root in the center of the way. Stone slowly reclaims its dominion over dust. This was the secret. The sacred act was never in the permanence of the object. The temple was not meant to stand for millennia. The prayer was not meant to be preserved under glass. The entire ritual, from the gathering of the clay to the shaping of the hope, to the arduous journey to the leaving, was an act of conscious, beautiful surrender. It was a contract written in water and earth. They gave their prayers to the mountain, and the mountain, in its ancient wisdom, gave them back to the earth. The cycle was complete. The path was washed away by rain because it was never a road. It was a river of devotion, and all rivers must eventually merge with the source. So as you drift now in the soft silence that follows the story, remember that path, not as a ruin, but as a process. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen, and the most profound echoes are not those that bounce off stone walls, but those that come from the earth itself, from the memory of a climb made not for glory, but for grace. The offering was returned, the journey was the destination, and the path, the sacred, temporary, washed away path, was both the question and the answer, forever fading into the mountain, forever being remembered by the rain. The bell that rings under the sea, it is said that the sea does not forget. It accepts, it cradles, it hushes. Before you close your eyes tonight, let your mind drift away from the solid edges of the world. Let us travel not to a desert, but to a shore under a moon the color of bleached bone. Stand with me here, at the edge of the land, where the sand is cool and damp beneath your feet. Look out. The Mediterranean stretches before you, a vast breathing plain of obsidian and silver, stitched with moonlight. The air is still. The world holds its breath. But listen, not with your ears, for they are useless here. Listen with the memory in your bones. Out there, beneath that shimmering skin of water, a gate stands open. It is not a gate of wood or wrought iron, but of stone, great hewn blocks of rose granite carved with the faces of forgotten gods. Once, this gate welcomed the wealth of the world. Ships from Crete heavy with oil, galleys from Greece bearing wine and wisdom, barges from the heart of Africa laden with ivory and gold. The air rang with 1,000 languages, a symphony of commerce and clamor. This was Thonis. This was Heraklion, the mouth of the Nile, the grand port, the harbor that held the key to a kingdom. Now, the gate opens only for the slow dance of the currents. The lintel is furred with the gentle, eternal snow of the sea, a soft blanket of silt. Anemones, like living sapphires and rubies, cling to the stone cheeks of the god. His ceremonial beard is a nest for silverfish. The gate does not lead to bustling streets or storied temples anymore. It leads into a blue-green cathedral of absolute silence. It is an invitation into a dream the sea has been dreaming for 1,000 years. This is our threshold. Take a breath, the last true breath of the world above, and let us cross over, not with a plunge, but with a slow, graceful sinking of the soul. Let us watch as the city accepts its long, slow, and serene drowning. Some believe cities fall in fire and thunder, in rebellion and siege, and some do. But the greatest cities, the ones woven deepest into the myth of the world, often leave with a whisper, not a scream. Their departure is not a violent end, but a tender transformation, a returning. Let the moonlight above diffuse, soften, become the sun of a lost afternoon. The water around us is not yet deep. It is warm, lagoon-like, and shimmers with a light that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. We are standing on a quay of fitted stone, still warm from a sun that has not yet been told to stop shining. But look down. The water is here. It has arrived not as a tsunami, not as a furious wave, but as a patient guest. It seeps up between the stones, clear and gentle, a crystalline film that mirrors the sky. It kisses the soles of sandals left by a merchant who stepped away for a moment that has now lasted centuries. And there, before us, is the silent witness, a colossus, a pharaoh of a red Aswan granite, standing 3 times the height of a man. He is depicted mid-stride, 1 foot forever forward, arms crossed over his chest, holding the crook and flail of eternal authority. His face is serene and imperious, gazing toward the horizon he was carved to command Adar. For 500 years he has watched the comings and goings from this sacred dock, bathed in dry golden light, smelling of incense, spice and sweat. Now watch. With the slow, inevitable grace of an hour hand at midnight, the water begins its pilgrimage up his body. First, it touches his feet. The cool, clear sea embraces his carved toes, floods the base of his plinth. Tiny minnows, like darting shards of light, investigate this new, strange rock in their realm. The pharaoh does not falter. The water climbs to his ankles, a permanent, rising anklet. It is not an attack, it is an adornment. The stone, thirsty from centuries of sun, drinks it in, darkening to a deep, solemn red. We must move slowly here, for time has become something different. It is no longer counted in heartbeats or drumbeats, but in the settling of specks of dust. A year is a millimeter of silt. A century is the growth of a single fragile fern of coral. The water is at his knees now. The great muscles of his calves are submerged. The detailed hieroglyphs that spell his name and titles, beloved of Amun, mighty of Am, are now being read only by the languid brushes of seaweed. Where the noise of the port once roared, the shouts of stevedores, the creak of hemp ropes, the thud of cargo, the clatter of bronze scales, there is now a new sound, or rather, the absence of one, a hollow, resonant hum. It is the sound of space being filled with something infinitely soft and heavy. It is the sea's own breath, a low, foundational note that vibrates in the chest, not the ear. Let us wander as the water wanders. Here, in a small chamber off the main square, a merchant's table is still set. His bronze scale, the symbol of his truth, sits upon it. The two pans are perfectly balanced. In one, a set of carved stone weights. In the other, nothing. He was weighing air, or perhaps dust when he left. Now the water enters the room like a shy visitor. It touches the leg of the table. The scale trembles, almost imperceptibly. Then, with infinite patience, the sea lifts the entire apparatus. The weights drift from their pan, tumbling in slow, somersaulting descent to the seabed floor, where they will nestle, becoming part of the geology. The scale itself settles beside them, the beam tilting, forever frozen in a question mark. Justice, submerged, becomes archaeology. Outside, the water has reached the pharaoh's waist. His kilt is submerged. The belt, carved with cartouches, is now a haven for a translucent shrimp. His stone torso, proud and broad, meets the embrace of the sea, and still, his eyes look forward, unblinking. But what do they see? No longer the sails of the world. They see the shifting, dappled light, the slow ballet of particulate matter caught in a sunbeam that pierces the water from a world away. Near the drowned gate, a stele stands, a massive slab of black basalt covered in the precise formal script of a royal decree. It listed tariffs, laws, the will of a king made manifest for all traders to see. It was the voice of authority, carved in stone. Now the water softens its edges. The sharp, angular hieroglyphs, the owl, the basket, the serpent, are gently blurred. A hermit crab makes its home in the carved hollow of the ankh, the symbol of life. The law is no longer enforced. It is simply inhabited. The words are not read. They are felt like braille by the countless gentle fingers of the current. And the sounds? Listen to what replaces the human symphony. The deep wooden groan of a ship's hull, not from stress, but from the peaceful pressure of the deep. The click, click, click of a parrotfish nibbling at a limestone column, a sound like distant, slow-paced rainfall. The soft, exhalatory shush of a curtain of silt, disturbed by a drifting leaf settling back to its bed. This is the new liturgy. This is the hymn of the sunken city. The water is at the pharaoh's chest now. It rises to his crossed arms, the sacred crook and flail. These symbols of controlling the harvest and smiting enemies are now merely beautiful shapes for brittle starfish to cling to. The water touches the underside of his chin, a cool, eternal caress. It climbs the strong line of his jaw, and then it reaches his eyes. Those wide, sightless eyes, outlined in coal of stone, staring toward a future that has already happened. The water covers them. A film of liquid separates his gaze from the sky forever. The upward stare is now a sealed thing, a secret kept. The face, still regal, still calm, is now fully claimed by the sea. The transformation is complete. The guardian of a port has become a monument to the abyss. He is no longer a statue on land visited by water. He is a reef, a part of the sea that has taken the noble shape of a man. The city follows him. The temples, with their painted pillars, sigh as the roofs accept the weight of water. The bright murals of gods and goddesses dissolving into soft, weeping rainbows of color that bleed into the blue. Houses become open-faced caves, their doorways framing schools of sardines that move as one shimmering soul. The great network of canals, once throbbing with the traffic of barges, now guides only the unhurried paths of rays, their wingtips whispering through the forgotten streets. And so, we find ourselves suspended here, in the middle of this liquid cathedral. The process is over. The drowning is done. There is no more rising water, for everything has risen to meet it. Thonis Heracleon is perfectly preserved, but not as it was. It is preserved as a memory of the sea. The noise is gone, not stolen, but transformed. The haggling of the market has become the murmur of the deep current. The creak of the ship's timbers is now the bone song of the earth settling. The clang of the harbour bell, which once marked the watches of the day and guided sailors through the fog, has found its final perfect form. It hangs there still, in a submerged tower, a great dome of bronze grown thick with a patina of malachite green. Its clapper is motionless, and yet it rings. It rings with the tide. As the moon, that pale goddess above, pulls the heart of the sea, the water pressure changes in these sunken halls. It contracts and expands with a breath so slow, so vast, we could never hear it. This breath moves through the bell tower. It passes over and around the silent bronze, and in that passage, a sound is made. A frequency too low for human ears. A vibration that travels through the water and the stone, into the very foundations of the world. This is the bell that rings under the sea. It does not ring for sailors, or for kings, or for the living. It rings for time itself. It rings for the process of forgetting and being remembered in a different way. Its single, endless, silent note is the note of transformation. It says, what was loud is now quiet. What was rigid is now fluid. What was history is now myth. The city is not lost. It has simply changed its element. It traded dust for silt, sky for shifting light, the cacophony of mankind for the profound, forgiving silence of the deep. It is more a dream of the ocean than a memory of the land. So as you drift now toward your own softer tides of sleep, remember the Colossus with his water-blinded eyes. Remember the scale, settled in the silt. Remember the gate that opens only into mystery. They are down there still, in that blue-green twilight, held in a perfect, peaceful pause. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen in the quiet. Some bells only ring when we have grown still enough to feel their vibration in our souls. Perhaps it was never meant to be found by hands, only by the heart, in moments like these, in the dark, in the quiet, just before the world fades. Beneath the silence, the bell rings on. Let its soundless peal carry you under. The mirror that reflected a kingdom. It is said that the truest reflection is not of light, but of darkness, not of the face, but of the fathomless space behind the eyes, a picture, if you will, a chamber not of stone, but of silence, a tomb sealed for 1,000 years. The air is not air anymore. It is a broth of dust and time, thick and still. No torch has flickered here since the last breath left its king. And in this perfect perpetual night, there is one object that does not sleep. It rests upon a skeletal chest, a circle of absolute black. It is colder than the surrounding rock, smoother than still water. It is a pool of obsidian, polished to a liquid finish. The torchlight of the living world is a memory it does not share. It holds no image of the crumbling frescoes, the jade beads scattered like green tears. It simply holds the darkness, and the darkness, in turn, holds a kingdom. This is no mere looking glass. This is a threshold. A door closed so perfectly it becomes a passage. We are about to step through. Our story does not begin with kings or temples. It begins with fury, with the earth dreaming a violent, burning dream. Far to the south, in a spine of fire where the land itself is restless, a mountain convulses. It is a primal scene, one of raw, unthinking creation. The sky bleeds ash, a perpetual twilight stained orange from the belly of the world. And from that tortured throat, a river is born, not of water, but of liquid stone. It flows, a slow, incandescent syrup, devouring everything in its path with a terrible, gentle inevitability. This is the birth of fire and the mother of glass. As this river of flame meets the cool kiss of the air, a magic occurs at its crust. A skin forms, black and shining, like the hardened hide of a starless night. Beneath, the heart still glows, but here at the edges, the fire is captured, frozen in mid-leap. This is obsidian. It is not a stone that grows patiently in the dark. It is a stone born of a single arrested moment of cataclysm. It is fire-made substance, light transformed into its absolute opposite. A perfect, depthless black. When a piece is broken, it rings with a sound like chipped ice, and its edge is finer than any blade forged by man. It is born sharp. It is born sacred. It sleeps for centuries in the high, cold deserts, this glassy tear of the mountain, until the day hands find it. Not the hands of a warrior, but of an artisan, a man whose soul is a companion to patience. He is a Taj, a worker of stone. To him, the volcanic glass is not a tool, but a pupil. He sees the kingdom trapped within its murky depths, and his life's purpose is to invite it out. He begins with rawhide and grit. Sand, coarse as the first sun, is his brush. For months, he simply rubs. There is no hurry. The day's measure is not in hours, but in the slow sigh of friction, the gradual warming of the black slab under his palm. He is not carving, but revealing. He is wearing away the mountain's memory, the roughness of its birth, to find the perfect plane beneath. The shape emerges, a circle, not by compass, but by feel. The circle is the shape of the sun, of the moon, of the great celestial cycle his people chart in the silent observatories. It is the shape of completion. Years pass, the grit grows finer. Now it is the dust of softer stones, of river clays, until finally he uses the gentlest polisher of all, the bare oiled pad of his own thumb with a paste of water and limestone powder. This is the final incantation. stroke after stroke, day after day, in a rhythm as old as heartbeat. He is breathing a sheen onto the surface. He is not just smoothing it. He is teaching it to swallow light, to not throw it back, but to welcome it in, to drown it in a well of black. When it is done, it is a thing of cold, silent beauty. It weighs heavy in the hands, a dense, cool pool. Its surface is not a barrier, but a membrane. Held at an angle, it shows the world, but a world drained of color, muted, simplified to essence and shadow. Your own face is a ghost in its night, a smudge of pallor over the abyss. This is the first lesson of the mirror. You are not the subject. You are the veil. The mirror travels, wrapped in soft cotton, in a procession of silence. It is carried from the highlands down into the embrace of the emerald jungle, to a city of white stone where the temples pierce the green canopy, like the crowns of stone giants. It is brought before the Kuhul Ajor, the Holy Lord. He is not merely a king. He is the Axis Mundi, the world tree made flesh, the conduit between the realm of the living, the heavens, and the dark, watery underworld of Xibalba. In his private sanctum, the air is hazy with copal incense, sweet and resinous, the very breath of the trees offered to the gods. The only light comes from a single torch, its flame a dancing living thing. The king takes the mirror. He does not look at it. He gathers it into his lap, his gaze softening, his breath slowing. He looks into it. This is the sacred act, the scrying. He does not seek his reflection. He seeks the void behind it. The polished obsidian becomes a doorway. The flickering torch behind him is not reflected as flame. It is distorted, stretched into a shimmering path, a tunnel of molten gold spiraling into the infinite black. The smoke of the copal drifts across its face, becoming not smoke, but mist over dark waters, or the Milky Way. Wakachan, the raised-up sky, seen through a tear in the world. In the perfect, structured darkness of the mirror, visions stir. The black is a screen for the soul's projections. The mind's deep whispers. Is it prophecy? Is it communion? The lines blur. He may see the faces of ancestors, their features drawn in the subtle grey gradients of shadow. He may see the sinuous form of the vision serpent, coiling from the depths, its jaws opening to reveal a god or a spirit guide. He may see patterns, the shapes of coming rains, the movements of distant tribes, the health of the maze. The mirror does not shout its truths. It murmurs them in the language of shade and suggestion. It reflects a kingdom unseen, the spiritual kingdom, the kingdom of causes, the kingdom of the past and the future, all swirling in the silent black pool of the present. The mirror becomes his most trusted counsel. It is not a jewel, it is an organ of perception, as vital as an eye. It is the eye that looks inward and downward into the sacred well of time. And so, when the king's time in the sun-ended world concludes, when his breath leaves him to join the great wind, the mirror does not leave his side. His body is prepared, dressed in jade and quetzal feathers, symbols of life and spirit. The mirror is placed upon his chest, over his stilled heart. It is a deliberate, profound gesture. As his body is sealed within the stone sarcophagus, within the tumulus of the temple pyramid, the mirror goes with him. The priests understand. The journey to Xibalba is long and fraught with trials. The road is dark, the rivers are black, and the lords of that place are masters of deception. The king will need his guide. He will need the eye that can see in absolute darkness. The obsidian mirror, born of the underworld's own fire, is his compass for that starless realm. It will not reflect the terrifying faces of the death gods. It will absorb them, diminish their power. It will show him the hidden paths, the silent currents in the black rivers. It is a piece of the world's deep fire, given to him to light his way where no torch can burn. And so we return to where we began, to the chamber of perfect silence. The kingdom above has crumbled. The white stone has been kissed by green tendrils and split by thirsty roots. The shouts from the ball court, the chants from the pyramid tops, the rustle of the maze, all have dissolved into the humid whisper of the jungle. The kingdom the mirror reflected, the kingdom of spirit, of prophecy, of divine connection, has retreated. It has folded in upon itself, withdrawing into the only vessel strong enough, deep enough to hold it. There, in the absolute dark, the mirror rests. Its surface is a still ocean under a moonless sky. If a single drop of water were to seep through 1,000 years of stone and fall upon it, the mirror would not show the drop. It would simply accept it, swallow its tiny ripple into its eternal night. It does not dream of the volcano's fire, nor the artisan's patient thumb, nor the king's searching gaze. Such memories are for things that live in time. The mirror now exists in the state it always prophesied, a state of pure, unbroken depth. It is no longer a tool for seeing. It has become the thing that was seen. The entire kingdom, its hopes, its fears, its communions with the stars, has been poured into this black well. The mirror no longer reflects a kingdom. It contains one. Perhaps this was its true purpose all along. Not to show, but to keep. To be the silent, flawless guardian of a world that passed from the realm of light into the realm of legend. A perfect circle of memory, cooler than bone, older than scripture. And so, if you listen very closely, in the depths of your own night, past the pulse in your ears, you might sense it. Not an image, but in presence. A cool, circular silence. A depth that asks for nothing, not even your gaze. It simply is. A pool of black water in which an entire civilization has been gently, revocably drowned and preserved forever. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen, and some silences only speak when we are ready to dream. The mirror has stopped looking out. Now it is the darkness that looks back, and in its endless patient black, a whole world is sleeping. The staircase that led to the cloud forest, it is said that some roads are not made for traveling. Some are made for vanishing. Let your mind drift now far from the shores of sleep, to a place where the earth itself breathes clouds, to the spine of the world, where the Andes hold up the ski with jagged stone fingers. Here, in this deafening silence of rock and wind, lies a seam in reality. A path. Not a simple cut across the land, but a slow, deliberate stitching, a stone thread woven through the mountain's cloak. Feel the cold, thin air. It tastes of ancient ice and distant rain. Listen to the absolute quiet. A silence so profound it becomes a sound of its own. A soft, white noise in the soul. Before you, a staircase is carved into the very shoulder of the mountain. It is not a humble thing. Each step is a slab of fitted stone, worn smooth by 1,000 forgotten passages, yet still impossibly precise. It does not zigzag in fear of the steepness. It ascends with a calm, deliberate intent, straight into the wall of mist that hangs like a veil across the upper reaches. The path below is clear, solid, known. But there, where the staircase meets the cloud, there, it simply ceases. Or does it continue? The mist swallows it whole. A white mouth accepting a stone offering. This is the threshold. The Kapak Dinan does not end here. It transforms. This is the staircase that does not lead to a city, or a temple, or a fortress. This is the staircase that leads to the cloud forest, to a place that is less a place and more a state of being. Let us take a breath and begin to climb. Beneath the silence there is a rhythm, the rhythm of a single breath, drawn in, held, released. The rhythm of a heart beating against the thin veil of altitude. We are not alone on this stair. We move with the ghost of a rhythm, the rhythm of the Chasqui, the runner who was not a runner in our hurried sense. He was a pulse, a breath carrier, a moving bead on the empire's stone necklace. Do not imagine him sprinting. Here, at this height, all haste is blasphemy. See him instead in the slow, measured press of a sandaled foot upon the stone. A deliberate transfer of weight, a pause for the air to find his lungs. His movement is a meditation, a physical prayer uttered with the whole body. The path is his only certainty. The empire behind him, a network of order and command. The cloud before him, a realm of pure mystery. And he, the stitch between them. As we climb, step by patient step, the world begins to soften at its edges. The sharp mineral scent of the high puna, of each grass and cold stone, starts to fade. The wind, which moments ago spoke in a clear, whistling tongue against the rocks, grows quiet. It is as if a great door of wool is closing behind us. The light changes. The hard, brilliant blue of the mountain sky pales, then dissolves into a diffuse, pearlescent grey. Look back. The valley you knew is gone. It has been painted over with a wash of white. Look ahead. The next 10 steps are clear. Then they too begin to bleed into the air itself. And then you are in it. The cloud forest is not entered, it is received. One moment you are on a path, the next, the path is in a dream. The mist is not a thing you see, it is a thing you are inside. It moves with a slow liquid grace, curling around your ankles, brushing your cheeks with a cool, damp touch. It mutes the world. Sound becomes intimate, personal. The scuff of your own footfall is loud. The rhythm of your own breath is a drum in your ears. The stone beneath your hand is wet, beaded with 1,000 tiny pearls of moisture. The path is a ghost of itself, a suggestion in the white. You follow it not with your eyes, but with your feet, trusting the memory in the stone. This is the transition. This is the veil. Below was the known empire, Tawantinsuyu. the land of the four quarters, ordered, measured, connected by this very road. It was a road for armies, for llama trains, for the swift passage of Kipu-coded messages. But up here, the Kapak Nan sheds its practical skin. It becomes something else. A spirit path, a bridge not between provinces, but between realms. Whispers tell us the Inca did not believe the mountains were merely stone. They were apus, mighty living spirits, ancestors of immense power and consciousness. The cloud forest, this permanent drifting shroud, was their breath. It was the boundary between the world of men and the world of the divine. To walk this stretch of road was to walk directly into the breath of the Apu. You were no longer a subject of an empire. You were a guest in a god's house. Feel the life here, hidden in the mist. It is a secret, dripping life. Moss, thick and emerald green, swallows the stone walls flanking the path. Ferns, each frond an intricate lace of green, unfurl from every crack. Trees, dwarfed and gnarled by the wind, appear suddenly from the whiteness, their branches bearded with old man's moss, a pale green testament to endless moisture. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth, of decaying leaves, of a sweet floral rot that promises orchids unseen. Water is everywhere and nowhere. It drips, it seeps, it hangs in the air. It is the element that rules this between place. What was the purpose of a road that leads into the intangible? Why carve such perfection, such undeniable intention, into a slope that culminates in mystery? It wasn't for conquest. You cannot conquer a cloud. It was not for trade in any simple sense. It was for connection, a connection to the sources, to the origins of water, which began here in this mist-laden silence, condensing on leaf and moss to become the rivers that fed the empire below, to the origins of life itself, which in this high cradle bloomed in bizarre and delicate forms. And most profoundly, it was a connection to the Apus. The road was an act of reverence. By building it here, by maintaining it, by walking it, the Inca was saying, "We see you, we acknowledge your power, we do not stop at the edge of your domain, we humbly ask passage through it." The road was a prayer in stone, each step a syllable, each ascent a sentence offered to the mountain. The Chasqui, moving through this muffled world, was more than a messenger. He was a pilgrim. The message he carried, knotted into his quipu, was secondary. His primary role was the journey itself, the act of maintaining the connection, of tracing the sacred thread, of breathing the God's breath and carrying its essence in his damp clothes and cooled skin back down into the world of men. He was the vein through which the sacred mystery flowed, however faintly, into the body of the empire. The staircase does not end. It simply disappears into the white. You walk, and the mist parts for 3 steps, then closes again. You are in a cocoon of slow time. Direction loses meaning. There is only the stone beneath you, the soft pressure of the moisture, and the profound, listening silence. You are between earth and sky, between solid and vapor, between history and myth. This road is where geography becomes legend. The maps end here. The stories begin, and so we stop. Not because the path has ended, but because we have reached the limit of knowing. The Chasqui's rhythm fades into the drip of water on moss. He is gone, ahead, absorbed into the whiteness, become a part of the mist himself. Look down at the step beneath your feet. The stone is worn, but the carving is still true. It holds fast. It is an anchor in this sea of cloud. This is the final lesson of the staircase. It is an act of faith. Faith that even when the destination vanishes, the path is still sacred. Faith that the journey into uncertainty is itself the point. Perhaps the cloud forest was never meant to be found, only approached. Perhaps some truths are not to be seen clearly, but to be felt in the cool kiss of vapor on the skin, in the muffling of all familiar sound, in the slow green growth that reclaims everything. The empire that built this has crumbled to dust and memory. The runners have long since stilled their breaths, but the road remains, the mist still rises, the apples still breathe. The purpose of the road was not to arrive, it was to walk with intention into the great, beautiful, terrifying unknown, to feel the solid world give way to the world of spirit, and to understand in your bones that they are the same world. The staircase is an invitation to lose your way, in order to find a different kind of direction. It leads you to a sacred uncertainty, carved into the mountain's shoulder, a permanent question mark in stone. Now, let the mist thicken around you. Let the last edges of the stone blur into the universal white. Release the need to see the top. There is no top. There is only the climb and the breath, the cloud. Listen to the silence after the wind. It is a deep, listening silence. It is the sound of the world holding its breath. It is the sound of a mountain dreaming. Some paths are not for traveling. They are for dissolving. Let the path dissolve now. Let the mist become the air in your room. Let the silence of the cloud forest become the silence that cradles your own rest. You have journeyed to the edge of the visible. Now, let the dream take you beyond it. The staircase ends here. Or perhaps it is only just beginning.